On this episode, I talk with writer-director Jordan Downey. You may know him from his films Thankskilling 1 and 3, and one of my favorites, The Headhunter. I had a great time talking with Jordan. When you get done with this episode, make sure to check out my fellow horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse, Everything Went Black podcast, the Necromaniacs podcast, and Into the Necrosphere podcast. Thank you and hope you enjoy.
Yeah, I can. How you doing?
Excellent. Doing good, man. I'm glad to finally get to talk to you. I know we did a written interview before around this time last year. Wait, no coincidence, but it's finally cool to talk to you.
Yeah. Same to you. Yeah, I remember. We probably chatted Headhunter and everything in general up until that point. But no worries if there's repeat stuff or you want to go through some of the same things or you know curious about all new stuff. Open book.
Killer. Yeah, man. Like, also too, it was like the kind of the anniversary of the first time, like the Headhunter was my first ever like screener, like for the website and stuff. Like I've never even had a screener before. It's kind of my first big like review and stuff too. So this all works out really well. I just think it's really killer and I still love that film. So.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad that it was the first. That's exciting. And I'm glad that you're sticking with it then, because that's been a couple years now. So it seems like you've been, going strong since.
Yeah, it's been a progression. Like I said, before I did all the horror stuff, I was in a band for over 15 years, a heavy metal band. You know, we would tour the U.S. and, record a lot and everything. And I didn't have time to do anything else but band stuff because, it takes so much of your life away from you in a good way. It was fun. I loved everything about it. But, we ended up deciding to mutually just call it off. We did it for almost 15, 16 years and stuff. It's time to try something different. And, I went this route. And I started off really simple doing like blog posts and all that stuff. And I was like, well, I'm going to start a website. I did that. And now I've been doing a podcast for, I think, a year now, a little bit over a year. And I really love the whole podcast stuff. It's really killer.
Nice. It was horror a big part of your life and the band's life in general, though, even before you were doing it now sort of in this podcasting realm?
Oh, yeah, definitely. A lot of the albums were all like horror based. The last one we did, I think it was the last one or second last one we did was called Dead Letters. And that was based off of Clive Barker's book, The Great and Secret Show. Okay. So that whole album was like a concept album from, the Clive Barker book.
Cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, it seems like a lot of musicians who are really into horror find ways to sort of infuse it into their music.
Yeah, it works out so well, man. Like metal and horror, just music in general, but mostly metal. Like metal and horror go together so damn well. Like there's so many like friends of mine who are metalheads or in bands, and we have the same passion for horror, and it's great.
Oh yeah, I was just I was going through a bunch of, I forget the band that he did all this stuff. Do you know the artist Ed Repka, who does all those great album covers for, what did he do? It's like a lot of like zombie toxic waste kind of like stuff, but trying to remember the metal bands that he did a lot of the stuff for. But anyways, yeah, I've got like boatloads of artwork that I love, and a lot of it is from metal bands. And it seems like a lot of times they'll work with the same artist to do their album art and stuff. But
yeah, and I love that too. If I see like a new movie coming out and it's got really killer, like nasty, like metal looking artwork to it, it makes me, I want to see that movie that much more. You know what I mean?
I know. And there really aren't. That's actually really interesting because there aren't that many movies that sort of embrace that metal vibe. And we can get into this on when you're recording too, if you already aren't, but like we heard that a lot from the Headhunter, people saying that it was very metal, which was not, I get where that was coming from, but it was not something that we ever thought of while making it. But now I see it a little more clearly just because there aren't that many movies that kind of have that. The artwork gets very like kind of photoshopped and like glossed over and clean and pretty. And it doesn't have that nasty, like hard, heavy hitting kind of vibe to it.
Right. Oh, and this heads up, yeah, we are recording, so we're good to go on stuff like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that this appeals that much more to me. And I've seen a few of the newer movies in the past few years come out with like really killer artwork, and that is just it makes me excited to see that film. It's like back in the day when you go into the video store, pick up a VHS or a DVD, and all you got to go by is the artwork, you know?
I know, I miss that because it's ironic because even though now with streaming and VOD rentals and everything, like you could sit on Vudu for an hour and scroll through, and it's similar in terms of like all you have to go off is sometimes the artwork, although you have the trailer and the synopsis and the cast and all of that stuff is like right there, but it just doesn't have the same. Yeah, the artwork just doesn't draw me in the same, and I don't know that it's. I think there's just not as much care put into it, to be honest. It's just a lot of like lazy design is done to movies. Where back in the day, I think the little independent film that tried to somehow need to, find an audience or get rentals at video store, those, crappy little movies still went. All they had was like they had to go and get the right artwork. So they spent a lot of money and time in hiring some kind of an artist to paint, to draw, to go out and take a photo. I don't know about you, but I miss those. I miss the posters that were clearly like those, especially horror, where it was just more of a photography shoot and you could just see it was just a photo of something. It wasn't really that many. It wasn't really that artistic in terms of painting or collaging or doing anything, manipulating it too much. It was just like, yep, they put the slasher villain in front of a blue light on a stage and they took the picture and they put the title over it, and it was just like super simple.
Right. Yeah, I totally miss that. I miss video stores altogether, really, because of that reason. Because some of the cool video stores that have like the badass artwork up, and it's something dangerous about that, something magical about that we don't have anymore, especially with like Netflix and all that. Especially Netflix when it comes to their artwork, I guess you would say, on their like selections. Is like I passed over many movies because artwork looks so generic and shitty. I'm like, and then I hear, oh, it's actually a good film. Like it didn't catch me because I don't think they really give two shits on Netflix. They just want to get it out there, get the product out there,
Yeah, and then sometimes they won't even have artwork. It'll just be, like a still of Brad Pitt, from the movie, and it doesn't even. It's however they're doing it. It's really interesting because it doesn't. I find a lot of times I'll scroll through and I'm like, wait, this is a movie I love. Yet whatever you've chosen here does a terrible job of representing what this movie is about. It's not about this one, like, character that shows up 45 minutes in for a cameo that now has become famous or something. But it seems to be working and whatnot. But I'm with you. I do wish that there was more, I guess, more care and more attention and more appreciation put into the art of movies, the literal art of, posters and everything now.
Yeah, most definitely. There's a few companies out there like Witter Entertainment and Broke Horror Fan, all that do like the special edition VHSs and stuff of like modern movies, and I fucking love that, man. It's so cool just to have something like that you can hold in your hands and like well crafted, It's just really cool.
Yeah, I think the company, it was Retro Release Video did they're another one of those ones that does the VHS box slips.
Mm-hmm.
They did one for the Headhunter, and he actually transferred it for us transferred the movie itself onto VHS. And honestly, seeing it on VHS is my favorite format I've seen the Headhunter in, because it and not just for like nostalgic purposes, but when we were making it, I remember just thinking like I wanted it to feel like the kinds of weird, odd movies that I watched back when I was a kid, either something that I rented, from the back that my parents would have sort of like raised their eyebrows at and been like, what the hell is this that you're renting here? Or something that I found late night, on TV in the middle of the night, but something with a bad transfer to it, because there's something about that, the bad transfer, the bad quality that I don't think makes it a worse movie. In some days, it's more interesting to me because it almost feels more naughty or like more off limits. Like you weren't allowed to see this, and nobody cared about making it look really polished. So they just kind of dumped it out there because it's something that's sort of almost like a snuff film in a way. And like, I like that aesthetic. So it works really well for the Headhunter. It's just really cool to see it like that.
That's really killer. I tried to track down one of those. Yeah, I have no luck on that, man. I want one so bad, a VHS version of Headhunter. It'd be so cool, but no luck.
Oh, you mean that's what's tricky is that you can't sell it on VHS because then there's a rights issue. You can sell the artwork, which is the slip, or
Oh,
just the blank case, and there's a tape inside. Sometimes the tape just has trailers and other things. But yeah, he put the actual movie on it for us as sort of just a special thing. But yeah, I mean, maybe that would be a pretty cool thing is one day to do an official release. Although I don't know if the the 20 people that would be interested in that, you and me included, would justify doing it.
well, after the podcast, I'll send you a link to Witter Entertainment and Broke Horror Fan, and they
Yeah,
do. They This is what they do, and I know they both love the movie and stuff. I know a lot of people love the movie, so maybe that'd be something to look into. I mean, they do all the. I got a ton of VHSs from like Mandy was my biggest one I ever got from, and you can throw it in your VCR and watch it as it is. You know, it's all VHS quality, like incredible artwork. It's just awesome.
that Mandy would be a perfect one for that. Yeah,
Oh, it is. Yeah. I don't play it much because I don't want to take it out of its box. Mandy's my favorite movie of all time, so it's
really.
like the holy grail to me, you know.
It is. I mean, it's the most metal movie certainly in any recent era. So I could see the Mandy would be interesting to like. I almost feel like I would like Mandy on either ends of the spectrum, like either the VHS version or the 4K version, because
Mhm.
it would look so great in either one. I kind of makes me want to buy it now because I've only seen it one time and I loved it, but I kind of want to own it now.
Yeah, it's that movie is pure magic, man. I've been obsessed with it since the first time I saw it. Like I
Yeah.
got to own everything that deals with Mandy. So I got a signed Mandy poster. I got all kinds of shit. I got like bobblehead Mandys, you name it, I got it. I'm like, I'm obsessed with this shit. So good though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it kind of blew me away when I saw it, and to be honest, like I really I enjoyed Beyond the Black Rainbow, and visually it is incredible. But I didn't find myself thinking about it in the years following the way I have with Mandy. I think that like what he did such a good job is finding just enough within his voice and his style and tone of and a little emotional element with Nicolas Cage that even with all of the insanity that follows, like you care about him.
Right.
And I think even just that little bit like is for me at least what makes movies a little bit more watchable, or I guess something that gives them more of a shelf life in my mind. But yeah, Mandy was. I listened to the soundtrack to that all the time while writing and working on other stuff. Um, so yeah, it's very special.
Yeah, it's a perfect soundtrack for super early in the morning when I'm going to work. It's still dark outside, and I throw on the Mandy soundtrack, and it's kind of teleport my way to work pretty much because I'm like, oh, I'm already there, you know?
Yeah. You ever play the little ocarina to conjure up the ATV
Oh,
guys?
I need to.
Yeah.
I got a neighbor I need to deal with, so maybe I could work. I got to work that deal out.
There you go.
Yeah. But that man, the Headhunter and Mandy would be a great double feature because there's some similarities there. You know what I mean? Especially with both of them are really emotional films. You know, they're kind of like kind of revenge because Headhunter is revenge, Mandy's revenge, and the aesthetics and everything too. You know.
Yeah, that would be. It's actually ironic because it's sort of, well, it didn't, it almost like happened in a weird way because The Headhunter had its premiere at Sitges, which is a big horror film festival in Spain. And Mandy had already been out for a while. But Mandy, I think, had sort of its last festival screening because, if you're an independent film, you're usually, showing at different festivals over the course of maybe 6 to 12 months
Hmm.
sporadically, depending on, your distribution deal. But so Mandy's sort of run was ending at the same festival as the Headhunters was beginning. Um, and I actually met and talked with Panos a little bit after the screening that night. They did not play back to back, but they were sort of like in the same vicinity. But it was interesting because Mandy, I saw Mandy when The Headhunter was in post-production, and I was already a fan of Christopher Shy's artwork, and he did the poster for
Hmm.
Mandy, and you've probably seen all of his really cool, horror art that he's become really known for in recent years. But I didn't think that we would be able to get him. I had no idea, like, oh, is this guy going to respond? Is he going to be difficult to track down? So because I was such a fan of the Mandy poster and the ones that he did that were not like officially licensed just for other horror films, reached out and sure enough, he got back. And I was editing a movie at the time in his hometown in Kentucky, which is a very small town. And I'm not from Kentucky. I'm not from that town. It just was a total coincidence that that I happened to be living and working 10 minutes from where his parents lived, Christopher Shy's. So then I got to know him, got to know his parents a little bit. And he ended up doing the poster for The Headhunter, that blue and purple one with the head up on the spike. And that one is really, really awesome. And
Yeah.
that's one, got tons of attention from that poster. So it's interesting that we're talking about Mandy because the two things are oddly very linked. I feel like when you make a movie, there's usually a couple other films that somehow you kind of end up crossing paths with, either because of release date or you share a distributor or a poster artist, or maybe the same composer works on it. And Mandy to me just feels like, though I don't think that they're saying The Headhunter feels like this to them, to me, Mandy just feels very like tied with The Headhunter spiritually because they both kind of were coming out at the same time and sharing some of the same people. And it was just on my mind a lot.
That's killer. That like the coincidence there almost, and the how you're tied together like that. And that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great movie to be tied to because I mean, The Headhunter and Mandy are two of my favorite films of the past 15 years, easy. Like still love The Headhunter and of course still love Mandy.
That's it's interesting that I wonder like what if there's a way to. I mean, some of it is like there isn't. I wouldn't say either of the films is really trying to be commercial. I'm just like trying to pinpoint like what it is that maybe how why those movies would be your favorites of everything that else that has come out. They're not trying to be commercial. They're really not giving you a bunch of exposition and backstory. They're kind of just leaving it up to the imagination and sort of just taking you along for a ride, and you get what you get. It's just interesting because I would say that would say a lot about your viewing taste, just that those two movies really stand out to you because I can see those sort of similarities in a way.
Yeah, and they're both like metal as hell. If you gotta like throw it in terms like that, like they're both
Yeah.
metal fucking movies, and I guess too that draws me in, being that metal's my favorite genre and genre I played for years and stuff, and they're both metal. They're both unique. They're not the same shit you see like every other day that gets thrown on Netflix or stuff, shit like that. They're
Yeah.
their own things, and they have their own like I don't know their own spirit to them and stuff. They're just really heavy hitters, just really heavy emotionally and visually and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, very dark, very metal, very dirty, grimy. The worlds are very lived in. The heroes are very brutal. The whole movie is very brutal. Like there's really not like but yeah, at the same time, there is kind of this soft spot. I mean, The Headhunter has these very emotional, musical cues and moments in it, and Mandy
hmm
has some of that stuff too. So it's not, I guess when the average person that might think, oh, something is quote unquote metal as a film might see that as a turnoff because they might just think there's nothing for them to connect to, and it's just going to be blood and guts and pain and misery and just like like and neither of those movies are really like that either. They have those
right.
elements, but there is something else.
There's like a vulnerability to them both. Like the hero's not like your regular stock hero, like everything's right for me, I'm the perfect person, all this stuff. They're flawed. It's a real thing. It's not like some superhero like saving the day and stuff like because humans are flawed. So
Exactly. And there's kind of some unexplained fantasy that's just for the sake of fuck it, that's awesome and that's really cool. As
hmm
far as Nicolas Cage getting that ridiculous, weapon and the like I said earlier, the ocarina that summons those demons, motorcycle riding demons, and the headhunter, this black tar, and Pet Cemetery type, resurrection of your daughter, and just there's a lot of stuff in there that feels kind of pulpy, like out of a graphic novel or something, that is there because the filmmakers think it's fucking not cool, and that's and then trying to justify it with the story or build a story around it so that those really cool things don't just totally come out of left field, but sort of fit in.
Right. No, that's totally, man. And that's something else I'm drawn to too, is like old school comics, and I like the Conan comics and stuff like that, like that the sorcery and shit from the 80s, from like the Conan films or any of those like 80s like sorcery films, like there's elements of there too. Like it just draws me, I think, visually, and this, I don't know, something about that.
Yeah, same here. I'm looking on my shelf next to me. I've got a bunch of comics, and Born on the Battlefield, the Conan one, is right here as I'm talking. But I wasn't really like a huge, I didn't, what's interesting is like making the Headhunter, I wasn't like super obsessed with, swords and sorcery and fantasy, that kind of stuff growing up. I didn't really see the Conan movies until a little bit later. I knew them just because I'm a big Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, but, but I was really into medieval stuff, like seeing Braveheart, blew my mind as a kid, and just anything that was, kind of in that grimy, grungy, the world of castles and all that kind of stuff, an Army of Darkness. So, but it wasn't like until a little bit later that I sort of started to really appreciate that kind of stuff a little bit more. And it was certainly never a thing that I thought, oh, this is a genre, this is a type of film I really, really want to make, so let's go out and make that with the Headhunter. It just so happened to be that the best idea that we had at the time when we were looking to make a film happened to be this, this dark sorcery type of concept. But it's made me appreciate that stuff and go back and look at it and become a fan of it. By making that movie, it's made me more of a fan of that genre, perhaps, than I was before making the movie, if that makes sense.
Right. No, no, most definitely. And what was your like major inspiration for the Headhunter to get started on that?
Well, inspiration wise, as far as to go and make it, was just that we were kind of fed up with waiting around to go and make a film. And we made a short film a couple years before that called Techno Western, which is on my YouTube channel. And that was originally going to be a feature, that we had a feature script for it, and we were going to go to Ohio, where I'm from, and shoot that. But we realized we just couldn't pull it off. It was too big of a cast, too many locations. So we ended up just making it as a short film. And I think there was a part of us that probably felt like, damn, like we really didn't go the distance with this, because even though we're proud of the short, we really wanted to go and make another feature. After Thankskilling and Thankskilling 3, we wanted to do something just very different. And so I think that was in us still, that angst from not having accomplished that with the prior film. And so we just sat down and started kicking around ideas. And Kevin, grew up in Portugal, and some of his family still lives out in this very remote village where we ended up shooting the movie. So I'd seen pictures of the village, and he went back on a vacation back to visit family, and took some of these misty photos in the hillside. And we just said, you know what, this is such an awesome location. There's got to be a movie or something that could work for this. And let's just make something that's really isolated. And so then we were kicking around all kinds of ideas, modern, things that took place in present day, stuff with a sci-fi element, things that were just more, I guess, supernatural. None of it was sticking until we were sitting at lunch, and I have no idea where this came from, but we just started talking about this Viking warrior that would rode over the hilltop on horseback and had this sack bouncing against his side, and he's bleeding, and his armor looks like some kind of a, really powerful monster has like clawed through it. So he looks beat to shit, and he kicks in the door and he goes into this cabin, and and we don't see what's in that sack, but we get the gist that it's probably some sort of a severed head. And he runs across the room and he puts this nasty, disgusting, foul elixir into his wound and he passes out. And we just thought, like, okay, that's a really interesting character. Who is this monster hunter guy who goes out and slays the beasts in the kingdom, which is a concept or a type of character that we have seen before, but we have never really seen the aftermath of that guy. And we've never really seen how that guy sharpens his weapons, and we've never really seen how that guy treats his wounds, and we've never really seen what that guy's daily life is like. You only see them when you need the action beat in a movie. And so we just kind of thought, okay, well, what if you took that guy, but you put him into more of a horror space, so that it would be more of a medieval horror film, which that interested us because it had never really been done either. And you make a whole movie kind of about the solitude of that guy. And it just grew from there. And then we, like visually, some of the things that inspired us were A Quest for Fire, which is this great French sort of Neanderthal movie where they have to, I don't know if you're familiar with it, they have to go and find fire, Quest for Fire. But
that's Ron Perlman, right?
Yeah, Ron Perlman, Everett McGill, and trying to remember the third guy's name. It's fantastic, and it's just a great example of, like, okay, something that could take place in the past, but that doesn't require a bunch of dialogue in their case because they weren't speaking English, but or any language that was translatable, but also just like I love that sort of silent movie vibe where it's like you don't need a bunch of words to convey a really interesting story, but it also doesn't need to be limited in terms of its scope. And so The Quest for Fire was a great example. And then, of course, we were big Game of Thrones fans, and that just helps, and that was like in its peak when we were writing and working on The Headhunters. So that helps in terms of just the world and the costumes and the cinematography, and it inspired us that way. But then to bring in the horror elements, like, Kevin and I are both, huge X-Files fans as well. And even though that you wouldn't think that, like, FBI, the vibe from the X-Files doesn't necessarily apply itself to medieval, but there's just the way that they shoot that show and the score and just the tone that the X-Files had is just so eerie all the time. So that was a big thing. And then last, one of my favorite horror films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, inspired us a lot in terms of just like those sort of rudimentary looking zooms, the daylight horror elements, the production design, everything made out of bones and, rotting flesh. And I wanted there to sort of be that even though our medieval monster hunter had this metal armor and he was not really a hero, but kind of an anti-hero, medieval Batman was kind of a way that someone described it to us, but but I wanted him to have like a Leatherface vibe to it, that like in another movie, this guy could be the villain. He could be something that you would be running from, but in this movie, he's on our side, but there's a disgustingness to him when he puts on the mask and the cape has sewn up flesh in it. And there's just something that, like, he doesn't mind getting his hands covered in blood and guts. Right. And that the silhouette of him is very scary as well. So yeah, those were the main, I guess, ingredients of what was going on in our head as far as where we were at in our lives and careers and just wanting to make a film, and then some of the stuff that we were watching.
Nice. You could definitely see that, especially since you said the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I can see that, especially when he's back in his house and stuff. You go like the nasty like bones and stuff, and then the heads on the wall and everything. I could totally see that.
Yeah, exactly. We had like this book with us because we did all the prop making and set construction and everything ourselves, and so we had this like book, this PDF that was a lot of images that we pulled from, Pinterest and reference photos and things that we had, but also then a lot of stuff from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we just flip open that book and take these, plastic bones that we bought and figure out how to fuse them together with, it was very rudimentary, the tools we had, but it was mostly a lot of like plastic bones and Halloween masks and stuff. And we, just stick them onto stuff with that spray foam you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, and kind of sand that down and make that look like the meaty part of stuff, and kind of just fuse it all into a disgusting mess. But yeah, that was a big reference for us.
How did y'all get Christopher involved? I know he's been in some other like kind of medieval type stuff. Was he like a first choice? Because the role was like perfect for him, I think.
Yeah, he did a really, really good job, and just kept surprising us throughout the whole thing, because we didn't really have a lot to go on as far as like, other projects that he had been in prior to the Headhunter that really showed off his range. So we were kind of going in, just trusting that it would work out, but we didn't really know. The way we found him was, it's actually kind of silly, but like Kevin was just, I believe, on a casting website, because we thought, well, we don't want to find just some American dude who's going to try to, put on an accent and just, and like put on a fake beard or a wig or anything like that. We just thought like, wow, this could feel really inauthentic and go south really quickly if we don't make sure that he at least has the physicality that you would believe him to be a monster hunter living in that time period. So anyways, Kevin was just on some casting website in, I think it was out of the UK somewhere, maybe even in London, and just searching through different actors. And because, he was looking at like Scandinavian actors, and I think Chris's picture popped up, and his headshot is very striking the way he appears in the movie. So he immediately stands out. And I think that's where so it just started from a random casting website search. And then from there, and we probably had a few other people that we had set aside, but nobody that we ended up reaching out to. I believe Chris was the first and only person that we actually made contact with, and basically said like, hey, we have this project, probably fairly timidly, because we had no idea how often he was working, what his if he had a day job, or what his life was like, or what he was like as a person. So we just were kind of like, we have this script. We think you could be really good for this. Do you have any other info, or do you have a reel? Do you have anything else? Just sparking up a conversation. And he seemed very interested from the start, and then we just formed a friendship, and chatted and whatnot. But there really wasn't. It was his first starring role. It was his first feature film. He'd only been in, I believe, shorts and music videos prior to the Headhunter. So there was really only a couple of instances, but even though he needed to have the physicality, which is proven in the photos and videos that you would see of him, right, there was something more that I could tell, like just in his eyes. And it was really came from like a couple, there was like an Instagram post that somebody had made of him, or a photo of him taken on set, and he had this expression on his face that I loved. And there was another shot, I believe, in a music video that he was in, where he sort of walks up into a close-up, and he's holding a torch, and he has this great look on his face. So there was really, like, I guess it was a gut instinct that he could pull off all of the entire movie based on just a couple of very small references, because we didn't do an audition, and we didn't do any kind of like a screen test, or shoot anything with him to prove that he could do it. It was just we went with our gut. And to be honest, I don't think we were going to find. There's not that many candidates out there. We just got lucky to find like a really, really fantastic one, and a great person too to work with. It could have also been difficult on anybody to put that costume on and go out into the woods with a few strangers and get themselves wet and covered in blood, and dealing with all kinds of the elements, and get frustrated. But he never did.
That's killer. Yeah, you chose very wisely, because I mean, he is the movie pretty much. When it comes to he fucking killed it. I wouldn't know that was his first role if I didn't know anything about him, from his internet database page or what a movie database. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't know, It's like, oh, he's a seasoned actor. So
Yeah, yeah, and he's got a few bigger things coming. I don't know if they've been announced or not, but he's definitely he's a really hard worker, and and I'm really happy to and excited to see a couple of things that I know he has shot that haven't come out yet that are even bigger, much bigger than the Headhunter. So he's killing it out there still.
that's really cool. How grueling was the filming of this film? Like how many days? And I know y'all went on a really small budget and stuff, so like was it pretty rough or like any
It wasn't. I wouldn't. I mean, to be honest, of all the movies I've made, features and shorts, each one's entirely different. Different groups of people, different locations, different budget, different life circumstances. But I enjoyed The Headhunter the most. I don't know. I mean, being in Portugal is probably a part of that because that was really interesting and really cool. And Portugal is a beautiful country, and we sort of were living in this village. It felt like we kind of transported, back in time ourselves. We were all staying under the same roof. We would have, a bottle of wine at lunch every day.
Mm-hmm.
We would have nice lunches. Like, the conditions of making the movie could have been so much worse given the budget. Like Thankskilling was the opposite, as far as like we had these shitty snacks that we bought at the beginning from Walmart, and they were all like thrown in a tub, and we were shooting in the middle of the night, and it was just it was humid a lot of times. I don't know, for some reason it just did not. That one is not as fond of a memory in terms of the actual making of it.
Right.
But the Headhunter really is. It was, I think we ended up shooting for 25 or 30 days in Portugal. We ended up doing some reshoots later and shot for another 5 to 10 days. So total, it was probably closer to 40 days of shooting to make the Headhunter, which is a pretty good amount of days especially because the running time is pretty short. But when you're, with such a small crew, you move a little slower.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, condition wise, it wasn't so bad. I mean, it was cold, but we didn't really shoot in the middle of the night. We didn't have to shoot like from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. very often. We would just kind of tack on the night stuff for the last few hours of each day. So it wasn't miserable. It would rain and snow, but it was very sporadic. Like we were filming in March, so I think winter was kind of in that winter to spring transition where we'd get all of a sudden like all this snow would come in for a couple of hours, and then sometimes we would go out and get a snow shot, or you'd see, we'd have him walk through it, or we would use that, and then it would melt off right away.
Mm-hmm.
It was really bizarre, and the sun would come out. In the cabin, he would have a fire going in there. A lot of times we would use that to keep ourselves warm, and nobody bothered us. It was just me and Kevin and Ricky, our friend from school, and the producer on the film, and Chris most times out in that cabin. And just, I think that it got hard on all of us, and we certainly got exhausted, but we were kind of just left to ourselves and just did our own thing and tried to put on music and have a good time. And Chris was a breeze. We'd go into town on the weekends. We shot for 6 days. And then there towards the end, I think we ended up going like 7 days a week, just because you start to run out of time. And normally you'd like to shoot for 5 days and have the weekends off, but we'd go in and get pizza and go hang out in town and kind of go explore and stuff. So we tried to maintain some sense of fun and life, along with, making the movie and going through the conditions and everything. But yeah, overall, like, I have very positive memories about it. I wouldn't say that it was any more difficult than, it probably was less difficult maybe than it would appear, because it seems like we went to the most exotic locations ever, but we were just staying, in a very close vicinity to those.
That's killer. Yeah, it's kind of like almost a vacation filmmaking type thing, being that you're in such a pretty place,
Yeah, kind of. And it kind of makes me, think like, that you like making movies. One thing to sort of sit in your house or your apartment and dream up, whatever. But if you can dream something up that takes you across the world and, gets you to experience different people and who I think that's like even more special if you can somehow do what you love, but also do it in a really unique way and sort of like you said, take a little vacation along the way, then it's even better. So it makes me think about anything I write going forward, I sort of try to think, where could we do this somewhere, that's fun to travel to as well.
Yeah, that's a good goal to have for other filmmakers and stuff too. Like think way outside the box, like travel a little bit, and try to maybe enjoy yourself and find some place you're going to enjoy the film at and stuff.
Exactly.
Another question I had for you, I wanted to make sure I got on this podcast was I was reading up on you about you were an intern to Wes Craven. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's funny because now Scream is coming out this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really special. That was I was in college. I was, I think, a junior, and one of my friends had an internship at his company, which was called Midnight Entertainment, and this was like right around the time that he was sort of doing the Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes remakes.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, my friend, I was doing special effects stuff at the time too, and my friend, one of the assistants in Wes's office, was producing a short film, so I ended up going and helping her by doing some special effects stuff for that short. And anyways, when they needed another intern for the next semester, I was really excited to do it. So I applied and got the position, and I was basically just like, I forget what days of the week. I was the, Monday, Wednesday, Friday guy, or the Tuesday, Thursday guy, and would, have your typical intern duties. I don't want to make it seem like I was Wes Craven's assistant or working with him behind closed doors. I was an intern in his company,
right?
And he would come in and interact, but it wasn't like just me and him on set shooting the shit. But it was really cool because they were, I learned a lot about just like the in general, like the industry and intern duties and just how that works and the process. I'd never covered a script where you basically read a script and write a brief summary of it so that the executives and the assistants and the people above you as an intern, because you're the lowest on the totem pole there, they don't have to read the whole script. They can just look at this brief summary or this review to determine if it's something that would interest them or not. So you're kind of the first line of defense, for a script, making it for somebody who submitted a script, trying to get it to Wes Craven, making it all the way up to the top. Mm-hmm. So I would read scripts. I would watch things that they would send, shorts, features, different stuff. But yeah, it was really great. I remember a couple of times, like Sean Cunningham came in at one point, and nice. I had a short film that was playing at Scream Fest, and he was willing to just sort of sit and talk about Scream Fest and horror a little bit. And Wes, was awesome. Like there was one day where he came in. I knew he was in the office that day. He may have been there before I got there. I don't really remember, but I was just kind of sitting at my desk, head in the computer doing whatever I was doing. And like a figure kind of appeared next to me and a chair pulled up, and I was like, oh, this person's not leaving. And Wes just took a seat and wanted to sit down and chat.
Wow.
And just sat with me and just, said, well, what's your story? How are you doing? What's, blah, blah, blah. And that meant a lot as a horror fan, obviously, but it meant more looking back on it because he recognized that, like, if you're interning at his company, one, you're doing it for free, but two, you're probably doing it because you really admire him and you're a huge horror fan, and probably very specifically, you have hopes of being a horror director or horror writer or producer. There's not a lot of people that know. I feel like sometimes people lose sight of just like what 5 to 10 minutes of that kind of personal contact does to somebody. And it was, it was very special. It was very kind of him. And, it was really cool. And it's a great memory, of having that little interaction and the others that came and went, but it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But by the end of it, I was kind of ready to also, not be reading a bunch of scripts and answering phone calls, because it's just not really my, it also taught me that, I did not want to go into, I did not want to be an agent. I did not want to be working in an office environment. It just wasn't my personality.
Right. So I guess that kind of motivated you to get filmmaking. So, get going with that.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it probably did. I would say so.
So what got you to, was Thanksgiving was like your Thankskilling, I'm sorry, was one of your, was your first major film, correct?
Yeah, if you would say major, but yeah, that was my first feature. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was that? What was the inspiration for that? How'd you get started with that? And yeah, because that's a crazy ass movie, which I always watch during Thanksgiving. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's sort of. Well, I'm glad that our crazy plan of making a holiday horror film that could somehow then be a repeat viewing for fans every holiday has worked out to some degree, because that was definitely our goal and our hope. Yeah, Thankskilling, and The Headhunter are more similarly tied than you would think, because they look wildly different. They're about, totally different subjects. They're, the production quality on them is night and day, but they both are born from the same two people, Kevin and I, and they're both born from the same mindset that we both had, which was, you know what? We want to make movies. Let's go make a movie. Like, as simple as that. And so we were in college at the time. Thankskilling wasn't a student film because it wasn't for school credit or anything like that. They didn't sort of give us an assignment to go and make it. Some people misreported as that it was a student film, and it's like, well, not really. It was made by students, but it wasn't for school. But so we made that on our summer break in between our junior and senior years of college, and we just borrowed friends' gear, and we did get some gear from the school, but I think kind of like through faculty connections. It wasn't like officially sanctioned or anything. But yeah, Kevin and I were some of the film students that were constantly working every weekend on short films, especially the genre stuff, anything horror and sci-fi or anything kind of fantasy or different. We were always there working on them. And you become close friends with all of the crew that you're working with. And we were then, beyond some of the ones that would then go and work on everybody else's movies, we were also some of the ones that then were going out and trying to make our own and borrowing the cameras and borrowing the lights and whatever equipment we could get. And the sets that were standing, we would kind of just go and make a little short film. And we made this short film called Hack Job, which is again, that's on my YouTube channel as well, if anybody wants to see it. But that movie is nothing like Thankskilling, but it inspired us to say, hey, you know what? Like, if we just, like, making movies is really hard, but in an odd way, it's also not. You just kind of just start piecing it together. As silly as that sounds, like, that got in our heads at a very young age to just start shooting something and put it together and then, figure it out. And maybe you need more footage, or maybe you got it all and plan it out and storyboard and shot list and the whole process of making a movie. But we were sort of discovering it ourselves. But the one thing that, a short film can't do is kind of give you the challenge that a feature film does. So we wanted to go and challenge ourselves to make a feature film. But we were also just like, joking around, and a couple of jokesters at the time, and just wanted to do something silly. And and we loved horror films, and we would constantly be seeking out quote unquote bad horror films, or so bad they're good horror films, to laugh at them and to laugh with them. Sometimes, because the movie was made purposefully bad, sometimes, or it was just, a comedy, or sometimes because it was unintentionally bad. But either way, it still gave us the same feeling, which was enjoyment. It was fun. And we would go to the Blockbuster and we would just rent whatever, schlocky stuff. And I grew up loving the Full Moon and Charles Band movies, and anything like, Jack Frost, any of the holiday stuff, Leprechaun, any kind of a silly horror film where the villain could talk. Chucky, Kevin was a big fan of Child's Play. So we loved all of that stuff. And so we were just like, well, okay, what if we go and make one of our own movies like this? And so then that was really the genesis of it. And then it went from there, from us just trying to figure out, well, okay, what would we do? Would it be a holiday? Would it be set during a holiday? Would it be, what are the holidays that haven't been done? And kind of just like Headhunter began with a conversation that then, you get it, an idea is worth doing, I suppose, when it gets in your head. There's usually like this spark when the idea comes out of your mouth, or when it enters your head, where you're like, wait a sec, there's something there. There's something there that really interests me, or that I think would interest other people. And it would scare them, or it would make them laugh, whatever the intention is. But there's just something about that. And once that little spark goes off, I still am constantly getting that with different projects. It's like, I can't not make this movie. And that was kind of the feeling with Thankskilling, where it was just like, this is so ridiculous. If we stumbled upon this movie, it would literally be the funniest thing in the world to us at that time in our lives. And so, like, we can't not make this now. I mean, how can we go forward without a Thankskilling that exists in the world? It's so silly. It's so stupid. And then away we went, with Headhunter was low budget. Thankskilling was zero budget. It was like $3,500. It was nothing.
Wow.
So it was crazy that we pulled it off. And it's crazy that it would even see the light of day, because there's a lot of movies that, get shot in horror. If you're a horror fan, if you go on, put on the horror category on, any rental service looking for through VOD titles, it's like, holy cow. Like, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stuff that never sees the light of day. And so you got to come up with something that is unique and interesting. Otherwise, if you've just got another haunting of whatever, like, it's and you have a $3,500 budget, you've got a tough hill to climb. So yeah, and that's what I mean by that. It started in a similar fashion in terms of just us wanting to go out and make a film, and then letting the ideas come to us based on what kind of stuff was interesting to us.
And that spawned the sequel too, which had a little bit bigger budget, or around the same?
No, it had a bigger budget, because we had Thankskilling had kind of caught on a little bit through Netflix and through just DVD release, and in general, it was kind of getting its little cult following at that time. So we had and Kickstarter was just sort of in its infancy there. And so we had a Kickstarter, and so Thankskilling had a bigger budget. And then we did get some outside investors as well, who put in even more money. So yeah, Thankskilling 3 has a much bigger budget. Well, much bigger. I mean, it was 130,000 or about 130,000. The Kickstarter was like 100. So, which is still, if anyone said they made a feature film for $100,000, it's still micro budget, but compared to Thankskilling, it was a lot bigger. And we put, as much of that on screen as possible.
That's killer. I mean, like I said, there's a huge cult following for Thankskilling. Like, even on Twitter, when Thanksgiving comes around, like, there's just multiple Thankskilling posts. I think Darcy, from the Joe Bob show or whatever, I think she posted about it. I don't think Thankskilling's been on the last drive-in with Joe Bob. I don't believe it should be, though. It would be great for when he does his like Thanksgiving special. That would be so fucking cool.
Yeah, he did not this past year, but in 2020, Thanksgiving 2020, they did, he and Darcy did like a special. It wasn't through Shudder, but they did like a special Thanksgiving or Thankskilling screening on her, I think it was like on her YouTube channel. So yeah, they both like it, and that would be, I was thinking the same thing. That would be really cool for them to do it for the last drive-in. But I guess it would have to go on Shudder there first. But yeah, it's definitely taken on a life of its own in terms of the following that it has, and people, the just tattoos and Halloween costumes and just all of that stuff that you associate with sort of cult horror films, which is cool because it's not the kind of movie that I see myself making going forward. But at the same time, that is the kind of movie that you don't go and make a movie like Headhunter and then go and make a movie like Thankskilling.
Right.
You would be, not that you couldn't, it's just that you would probably be nervous to do that. Because you would just be thinking that publicly it would look like you're taking a step back if you're, getting wrapped up in that kind of stuff. So anyways, I'm glad, I'm lucky that Thankskilling has become what it has become, and I'm glad that we did it when we did it, because it is certainly a movie, very specific subgenre of horror that that I personally was a huge fan of growing up, and I'm just, it's really cool to see that it has kind of taken on a life of its own, and that Kevin and I were able to contribute our goofy little movie into that world of stuff that I loved a lot.
I also think it helps spawn like the new kind of small revolution of like retro horror films that's been coming out for like the past 10 years or so. Like, like the 80s throwback films, the 70s, they're made to look old and cheesy and stuff like the ones we used to like. And I noticed there's like a big, surge of that going on. Not as much as it was like a few years ago, but still, still there. And I think Thankskilling was a big reason for that.
That's interesting. Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, yeah, I wonder how much, how much. I would certainly hope that, I guess, I would hope that it has inspired some other films to get made, just from the sheer fact that this was a tiny budget film made by a couple of very inexperienced filmmakers, that it sort of saw the light of day, and it found a fan base, and it found its audience, and it got released and all that. I would hope that it has inspired some other people to go out and make their own films, even if the tone is totally different, just by the Headhunter, I know has had that kind of an impact on people. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Thankskilling has as well.
Yeah, most definitely. What are you working on now? What are some like future things that we can look forward to, if you can talk about it anyway? So,
well, yeah, I can't say any specifics, plot stuff or anything specific about this, the stories, but yeah,
right.
After the Headhunter and, and also with the pandemic and the lockdowns, we've been just doing a lot of writing. Cause that was the one thing that, the Headhunter took so much time, and we wore so many hats as far as, all the way through post-production and artwork and, marketing and all that kind of stuff, that you don't really have a lot of time to write a bunch of scripts. So the Headhunter opened all kinds of doors and got me all kinds of opportunities to meet with different producers and executives and people that can help get my projects made. And a couple of the producers that I had hit it off with the most, I've been developing projects with the past 2 years. Both are very far along at this point. One of them is the one that, there's one that Kevin and I, that we both wrote, that we're thrilled about. It's by far the best thing we've written, and would just be, we're just like super excited to get a chance to make this. It's really scary. It's really heartfelt. When the time comes that we make this, I think it'll have a big impact on the horror community in a good way. So we're really excited about that. And that one is kind of, now just before the holidays, sort of progressed to a point where we're getting closer and closer by the day.
Nice.
And then another one is we're just going to start writing the script for it. We kind of have we wrote a novella for it first.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, normally, we like to outline or do a very detailed treatment before we write the script. But in this case, the treatment sort of resembled the prose of a novel. So we just turned it into a novella. It's not published. We just have it ourselves. So we have a really good blueprint for what that one's going to be. We're pitching that now. There's been all kinds of stuff, that has happened since Headhunter. Just none of it has been public yet. And that's the nature of it. So yeah, we've been cranking out projects internally like crazy. But the big thing I'll say too is that like a lot of these things, just like in the past, even though the Headhunter is a much better calling card than Thankskilling ever was, that we were always in between each of these, in between every single short or feature, you're always writing stuff that you want to make, that whether it's film or TV ideas or pitches that need more of a budget. They're not possible to do with your own financing or on a DIY level. And once a certain amount, and it's very difficult to get people to read them, to get people to buy into them, to get other people invested in it and want to push it further and to believe in it the way you do. So you build up this reservoir of angst, I suppose, that then comes surfacing out in another movie. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that's really important to us and to me is that, even though we've got these other projects that we love and believe in and really want to see done with the proper budget so that you can pull off the effects and the stunts and the monsters and the look of it that it deserves, you've got to always keep those smaller projects in your back pocket so that you could go and make stuff, because I don't ever want to lose sight of that. I don't want to ever go and spend 5 years trying to, get something bigger going. And then, 5 years has gone by and you haven't done anything. So I think it's good we're always trying to develop these ideas that can be shot for a shoestring budget, just like the Headhunter as well. So there's a few of that's kind of where we're at right now, is while these bigger things are chugging along, working hard kind of in the background to get a couple of smaller things closer, because we really want to go shoot something this year.
That's killer, man. Yeah. And any of these werewolf movies, can you say that at least?
Is that one of your favorite? Is that
it is
genre?
Yeah, and it's they're supposed to be the new Werewolf Revolution. I was reading somewhere, maybe I can't remember what magazine, but I haven't really seen it. Like, I'm waiting for some more killer werewolf movies. Since like late phases, and there's a few other ones after that. Like, it's been kind of like,
Yeah. What are some of your? I'm a huge werewolf movie fan as well, and I think I've seen all of the ones worth seeing. And yeah, I'm with you. Like, I long for the day of a dark and serious, tonally werewolf movie. That it's just crazy to me that, like, there's been some good ones. Dog Soldiers and late, like you said, late phases was pretty good. Howl had some moments that I liked. But really, American Werewolf just stands on a pedestal of its own, in my opinion, and it's just crazy that nothing has come close to touching it. And it's been 40 years now, right? But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think werewolves need to be treated with some sincerity, and I'd love to see in actual budget, where you can pull off the effects and transformations and all that stuff the way that they did in American Werewolf, because you could absolutely do that again with the right schedule and the right budget.
Yeah, totally. And it's such a untouched genre. Like I said, you get 1 or 2 werewolf movies a year, and usually they're not that great. They're just whatever, and like It's like I don't know, man. We need more werewolf movies. Like I'm so tired. I'm like zombies. Vampires are still cool. Vampires are always cool, But need more werewolves. I just think it's time. And I heard it. Some shit's supposed to be coming down the pipeline there with werewolf, like the werewolf revolution. So we'll see what this year brings. But I'm not seeing anything coming out that I don't see any werewolf movies yet.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know, yeah, what the future will bring, but hopefully, yeah, I'm with you. I would certainly love to see some quality werewolf movies. And I know there's been some that have come out in recent years that I need to go back and check out. Werewolves Within, I have not seen, and Snow Hollow. I don't know how much, because I haven't seen them. I don't know how much werewolf is in them, or if it's sort of, you know, or what they're about. But yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen Werewolves Within. I've seen Snow Hollow or whatever. It's cool, but yeah, the ending was like, oh man. But I let you, I don't want to give anything away, but it's
Okay.
cool. I liked it, I liked it, but I was a little disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
Well,
like you said, the Howl was a really good one. I thought Howl was good. I know you mentioned that. Howl was cool. It was a different take on the whole werewolf stuff. I like the way they were designed, and they're pretty brutal.
yeah, that one, that and that in late phases seem to be, they kind of see, I think they seemed like, in my mind, those came out around a similar time and um were both were both good. But yeah, I'd love to just see like a really commercially successful one too, that really just like sort of brings back the way that, and you know what, it's only a matter of time, because those classic monsters always have that. We let the right one in with vampires.
Hmm.
And the Invisible Man proves that, like, those ideas that seem dated can certainly be updated and can certainly excite horror fans and get good reviews and make money, and it can
Hmm.
happen. You just got to get the right filmmakers and give them the right budget and freedom to really pull it off to what modern audiences would expect. But
Yeah, most definitely. Like I said, Invisible Man blew me away, and that's old as hell idea. The idea's been around since the 50s when the first one came out, like the original or something like that. So, and this was a totally new take on it. It's like I never saw that coming.
yep, yeah, exactly. Some
So
of those
that
are
would be
probably,
cool.
yeah, I'm with you.
Also, on the werewolf stuff, my friend Charlie Steed, he's done a couple werewolf movies. They're actually pretty decent. I like those. Like they're pretty cool. So, I think A Werewolf in England is one of them, and he's got another one coming out end of the month. I can't remember the name of that one, but it's another werewolf film. If I don't know if you know Charlie Steeds or not, but you should check out some of his films. He's got some practical werewolf designs. Is always a plus in my book, and he goes with those, so that's always cool. So
Werewolf in England. Okay.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
I'll take I'll try to hunt that down. Yeah.
It's a horror comedy, so take it as that. But the werewolf design's really cool in it, and it's a fun film. I liked it.
Cool. Yeah, I will definitely check that out. I think, you can always have more great werewolf movies. It seems like some of the better werewolf stuff in terms of practical effects have been sort of when it's been jammed into other movies. Like what was Trick or Treat had that great werewolf
Oh yeah, yeah.
scene out in the woods. There was something else that I was just thinking of too, but I don't remember what was on my mind. But but that was a good one too. I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, here's a good glimpse of what a great, well executed werewolf movie could look like.
Hmm. Also, if you ever go on YouTube, which I'm sure you check for older movies like I do on there sometimes, but and it's full VHS quality. They have a show from the late '80s, maybe 1990. It's called Werewolves or Werewolf. I'm sorry.
I've heard of this. Yeah, the TV. Who made this or who was involved with it? Do you
Rick
know?
Baker was involved in the
That's
special
right.
effects for the werewolves. Yeah, so they're killer, and they look so good. And like that's the highlight of the whole damn series is the werewolves and their transformations.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to go back and check that out. I remember stumbling upon that, and hey, I'd never heard of it or never seen it. So I want to go back and find that.
And the thing with that, you can't even find DVD quality. It's all like it's straight off of TV. Somebody ripped it through it on VHS. There's never been like official DVD release. There's supposed to be a Blu-ray release of some kind back years ago. None of that ever happened because of some copyright laws with the music. So like, and it's, oh man, it's so good. I would love to see it actually in at least DVD quality because the VHS quality is, cool for nostalgia and stuff, but it's really bad. Like it's hard to see what the hell is going on.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Some of those things, they get lost in time for legal issues that they can't re-release them or whatever it is. It's a bummer that things get stuck like that on some dated format and can't get off of it. But I guess that's why you've got that person out there that ripped it to YouTube.
Yeah, and that's the only way to really see it. And you can go on eBay and buy the DVDs of the ripped VHS if you can find those on there. I actually own one of those because I have no other choice because they don't have any DVDs of it that are real. So I got that and it's still the shitty ass quality. But I'm like, at least I have it. I can still go back. It's still watchable, but that shit ever comes to DVD like or Blu-ray, like it's gonna blow some minds because nobody knows about that show.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure there would be an audience. There's definitely seems to be a lot of, the werewolf genre has a lot of fans. There's a lot of people that love werewolf movies and are wanting more and more and more. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that would sell some copies.
Most definitely. What was your YouTube channel for my listeners and stuff? That way you can check out some of your shorts.
I believe it's just youtube.com/Jordan Downey. I think my handle is just my full name. My website is jordan-downey.com, and you can find the social media links up there. And then there's a little page for each of the films as well. So people could find some of the ones that I talked about that way as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm gonna have all this down in the show notes too, links for everything. So
fantastic. Well, fingers crossed for more werewolf movies, and I really appreciate you having me. And next we'll do it again when there's another film to talk about.
Yeah, I'm totally down. I can't wait to see what you got next, man. Like I said, Headhunter is one of my favorite films, and it was great talking with you and actually talking and not typing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a totally different story.
Yes, indeed. Well, have a good rest of your weekend. And yeah, like I said, I can't wait to see what you got for me coming up next and stuff. And make sure to send me a screener. I will review it.
You got it. Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate it. And have a great weekend and hopefully and Happy New Year as well.
You too, Jordan. Take it easy.
All right. Have a good one.
Later.
Bye.